Welcome back to the class, students. Today we'll be discussing non-communicable diseases. First of all, we'll discuss the general risk factors for non-communicable diseases, and these general risk factors are cigarette use and other forms of smoking, alcohol abuse, failure or inability to obtain preventive health services, lifestyle changes, environmental risk factors, and stress factors. As written on the slide, these are general risk factors, not risk factors for a particular disease, but risk factors for many of the non-communicable diseases. With that background, let us start with our first disease in the non-communicable section, that is coronary heart disease. It is defined as the impairment of heart function due to inadequate blood flow to the heart compared to its needs, caused by obstructive changes in the coronary circulation. As you can see on the slide, you have an enlargement of an artery of the heart, and you can see the narrowing of the lumen of the artery. So this is what exactly CHD is. The blood supply to the heart is reduced as compared to its demand, and therefore the tissue strives for oxygen. That gives rise to pain. This is in brief what CHD is. Manifestations of CHD. As you can see, there can be 5 types of manifestations of CHD. The first being angina pectoris on effort, myocardial infarction, irregularities of the heart, that means arrhythmias, cardiac failure, and a person can also have sudden death. Coming to measuring the burden of CHD. The burden of CHD in the community can be measured by proportional mortality rate. Again, what was proportional mortality rate? It was the mortality rate that could be attributed to CHD. That was proportional mortality rate. So how much of the people are dying by CHD out of the total number of deaths in the community? That is proportional mortality rate. Loss of life expectancy. How much of the life is lost because of CHD? That is another measure for CHD seriousness. CHD incidence rate. How many new cases of CHD are developing per year? Age specific death rates. All of us know that CHD was a disease of the elderly in the previous generation. In the modern generation, CHD is becoming increasingly younger in age, and you can see in your ICUs, people as young as 35 years old individuals come with chest pain and other symptoms of CHD. So age specific death rate is a very good indicator today for measuring the burden of CHD. Then you have something called as prevalence rate. I hope you understand what prevalence is by now. We have discussed this already in detail. Prevalence is the sum total accumulation of old and new cases of CHD. So how many cases of CHD are prevalent together into the society? Case fatality rate, that is the number of deaths by the number of people who are affected, that is case fatality rate. Measurement of risk factor levels. This is a surrogate marker. Say for example, you measure the prevalence of smoking in the society, you measure the triglyceridemia in the society. These would act as surrogate markers for the measurement of CHD. Burden of CHD in India. India, unfortunately, it has the receiving end for many diseases, and CHD is not an exception. In the Indian context, the CHD appears a decade earlier, and the peak incidence is observed in the ages of 51 to 60 years. That means in the Western world, CHD is usually observed in the 60s or in the 70s. In India, we have a incidence rate of CHD which is earlier than the Western countries. Males are more affected than females in India. This is no secret. Any ICU go, you can see many males who are affected as compared to females because of CHD. Hypertension and diabetes mellitus account for more than 40% of the cases. So there are a lot of cases in which these two factors are coexistent with CHD, and heavy smoking is one of the very important factors which contribute to CHD in India. You are looking at a slide which shows the risk factors for CHD. As you can see, they are grouped into 2 groups, non-modifiable risk factors and modifiable risk factors. Non-modifiable risk factors are the factors about which we cannot do anything about, and modifiable risk factors are, as the name suggests, modifiable. In the non-modifiable group, you can find age, sex, family history, genetic factors, and personality. In the modifiable column, you will find cigarette smoking, high blood pressure, high serum cholesterol, diabetes, obesity, sedentary life habits, and stress. So these are the modifiable and the non-modifiable risk factors for CHD. This is a frequently tested topic, and you should know these factors because these are easy MCQs again. The first and foremost risk factor that we will be talking about is smoking. Smoking is a co-inducer of atherogenesis. Smoking can directly as well as indirectly cause atherogenesis. We know that smoking, we inhale nicotine, which is a direct vasoconstrictor, that is the direct effect of smoking. Nicotine stimulation of adrenergic drive, raising both blood pressure and myocardial oxygen demand. So it hits twice. It reduces the blood supply, that is the first effect, and the second effect is that it puts more workload on the myocardium. Lipid metabolism, there is a fall in HDL and rise in LDL and VLDL. So again, this is not expected, this is not good. I have a problem with the lipid profile also. It is responsible for 25% of the deaths under 65 years of age. So as we discussed earlier, smoking is associated with an increased mortality of CHD, especially in India. It also causes sudden death in men under 50 years of age. The next factor is hypertension. Hypertension, as you know, in layman's term it is called as increased blood pressure. Hypertension accelerates atherosclerotic process. It increases both systolic as well as diastolic blood pressure, and the risk of mild hypertension is generally accepted. While discussing epidemiology also, we saw that if there is hypertension, even a small reduction in the hypertensive values of the community will lead to a large reduction in the disease burden of the society. So hypertension is a disease which should not be ignored. On a population level, even a small reduction in blood pressure will pay a huge reward for us. The next slide, you can see a chart about serum cholesterol. I have shown a vicious circle about this. There is habitual diet which leads to increased blood cholesterol levels, and then which leads to coronary heart disease. So once the circle starts, it is very difficult to get out of the circle. Although you know that there are newer drugs known as statins which can help in controlling these, but then they also have got their own side effects. So that is about serum cholesterol. It is better to keep the serum cholesterol levels in check rather than being on treatment. The next slide shows you the relation between total cholesterol and CHD levels. You can see that there is a spike above 250. The spike starts at the level 200 on the left hand side, and similarly you can see on the right hand side also the spike starts at the level of 200 and it rises sharply after 250. So this study shows the importance of having low levels of cholesterol. As the levels of cholesterol increase, you see that the rise of CHD is very, very marked, and this rise is very steep as we go more and more towards the right of the diagram. Cultural differences in serum cholesterol levels. Again, we are not very good here. Culturally, many Indians suffer from hypertriglyceridemia. As you can see from the chart shown, many countries have various levels of tolerance for serum cholesterol, and you have highest in Finland and the lowest levels are found in Japan. Incidentally, Japan also has a very low rate of CHD. So this is one of the factors which is contributing to the low levels of CHD in Japan. Other risk factors for CHD, we saw genetic, diabetes, physical activity. Physical activity is increasingly becoming a concern because of the increasing adoption of sedentary lifestyles. Hormones, OCPs. OCPs are a risk factor for CHD in later life. This is a disputable issue because many a times people are not encouraged to take OCPs for birth control if they know that OCPs are a risk factor. So, do you prescribe OCP or do you not prescribe OCP? The guideline is you do not prescribe OCPs for birth control to elder females. If a younger female comes to you, say for example, a female of 25-year-old comes to you for contraception, OCPs are the best choice. One of the reasons is because it has got a very spectacular success rate. But you give an OCP to an elder female above 35 years of age, the chance of CHD increases. So OCP should be avoided in such females. Type A personality. Type A personality in layman's term are the go-getters. They want everything in life, impulsive. How to spot a type A personality? You get into a lift, type A personality man pushes the button 2 or 3 times. So he is impulsive, he wants to get there fast. They are so-called leaders of the society. That kind of personality is also prone to hypertension and subsequently the development of CHD. Next in line is alcohol. We'll see the effects of alcohol. Oral contraceptives as discussed in hormones. Stress. We also had seen the same thing in epidemiology chapter. Stress is a positive contributory factor and CHD was one of the examples which is exaggerated by stress. Do you remember the other diseases? We had talked about bronchial asthma, we had talked about psoriasis, we had talked about CHD. So these are classical examples which are exaggerated by stress. Here you have a slide showing the correlation between diabetes and CHD. As you can see from the slide, as we go to the right of the slide, the bar is increasing. Look at the last bar here, diabetes and MI, the rates are very high. They are approaching 45%. So that means these two diseases are almost synergistic. If both are present, the chances of myocardial infarction are very high. As I said, we will be discussing alcohol. Here is a presentation on alcohol and effects of alcohol. High alcohol intake, defined as 75 grams or more per day, is an independent risk factor for CHD, hypertension and all other cardiovascular diseases. Please see that this is a good hypothesis because it is specifying the amount of alcohol also. So alcohol is an independent risk factor for CHD. Coming to the prevention of CHD. As we had seen, WHO recommends population strategy, high risk strategy. So under population strategy, we have prevention in the whole population of CHD and primordial prevention in whole population. I again hope epidemiology is serving you. What is primordial prevention? Primordial prevention is the prevention of emergence of risk factors for the disease in the community. So I am trying to avoid the emergence of the risk factors of the disease. That means that I am preliminary eliminating the possibility of the disease ever happening in the community. That is primordial prevention for CHD, and there are strategies for prevention in the whole populations. Similarly, you have high risk strategy, two-pronged approach, identify the risk, specific advice for those identified at risk. Let us see what population strategy here is. The principle is small changes in the risk factor levels in total populations can achieve the biggest reduction in mortality. So this is the principle of CHD. It is very similar to that of hypertension. So don't neglect your morning exercise, don't neglect your evening exercise. Your friends might be telling you are not gymming, there is no change, but some exercise is always better than no exercise. So even if you reduce your blood pressure by say 2 or 3 mm of Hg, that is a significant decrease on a larger scale. The aim of population strategy is to shift the whole risk factor distribution in the population towards the biological normality. When we discussed regression to the mean, this is something like that. I have a mean here, and the whole approach for population strategy is to try to push the blood pressure levels here towards the mean. Although for blood pressures, I won't be minding if the blood pressure is pushed to this level. What is the definition of blood pressure? I know most of you would be answering 140 by 90. Ideally, that is not the definition of blood pressure. Blood pressure can be as low as possible if you don't have the symptoms. If somebody has a blood pressure of 100 by 70 and he is asymptomatic, he has got no dizziness, no headaches, no complaints, Is this a problem? This is not a problem. So in case of hypertension, even if you are lesser than the mean and you are asymptomatic, being asymptomatic is an important thing. You are asymptomatic and the blood pressure is lesser than the mean, it is a good thing. So that is the approach in population strategy. We are trying to push the population blood pressure levels towards mean or very close to mean as good as possible. Specific interventions for this are dietary changes, stoppage of smoking, blood pressure reduction, and the promotion of physical activity. What are the specific dietary changes now that you should recommend to your patients of CHD? Consumption of fat intake to be reduced to 20 to 30% of the total energy intake. The slide in front of you is very important. Again, sitting duck MCQs, do not miss, very frequently tested. The fat intake should not contribute more than 20 to 30% of the total energy intake of the day. Consumption of mono and polyunsaturated fats, decrease the level of saturated fats to less than 10% of total energy intake. So out of this 30% that we saw earlier, let me put that down. Out of this 30% energy intake that should come from fats, not more than 10% should come from saturated fatty acids. Plus, you must promote the consumption of PUFA or polyunsaturated fatty acids. Reduction of dietary cholesterol to less than 100 mg per 1000 kilocalories per day. So total cholesterol consumption should also be reduced. Sometimes what happens is, obviously if you tell these kinds of things to the patient simply does not understand, because even we don't count the calories we eat. So do we expect the patient to know how much calories he has eaten per day? The rational advice in this case would be to minimize oil intake as low as possible. Ideally, it should not be more than 2 to 3 spoons per day. So if this target is met, the whole slide that you see, everything gets covered. So if you have to give a practical advice to a patient, or this is asked in the MCQ, this is what is correct. This is what is the answer. Increase in complex carbohydrate consumption not only helps in CHD but also a number of diseases. Okay, so increase in complex carbohydrate consumption is a very rational advice in today's day. Avoid alcohol consumption and reduction of salt intake to less than 5 grams or less. 5 grams is the limit for India. In Western countries or in colder countries, the limit is 3 grams per day. At this juncture, let me ask you, what is the average consumption of salt in the Indian diet per day? You might be surprised to know that the average consumption of salt in the Indian diet is at least 15 grams per day. So, an average Indian eats at least 3 times the recommended levels of salt per day. So, that means we'll have to have a serious reduction in salt intake to meet the target of reducing CHD. Smoking. The goal is to achieve a smoke-free society. That is the ultimate goal. Comprehensive health programs are required. Effective information and educational activities is the first prong of this program. This is a problem in itself. Effective information and education. Do you think that smokers don't know the side effects of smoking? The problem is, when studies were conducted, most of the smokers were very well aware of the side effects of the smoking. So although awareness is an important aspect, as far as smoking is concerned, this aspect is not shown to be helping that much to our cause. Legislative restrictions. There are many legislative restrictions in India as far as smoking is concerned. If you go to any pan kiosk, you know that cigarette selling is not allowed to under 18 years of age. You cannot smoke in India. Practically, you can only smoke on the roads. Otherwise, you cannot smoke at any other place. So these are legislative measures. Not selling cigarettes to children, banning smoking from public places. These are legislative measures to curb smoking. Fiscal measures. Fiscal measures means increasing the taxation of cigarettes so that the end user has to pay more to get his pack of cigarettes. And community smoking cessation programs like you have for Alcohol Anonymous. Similarly, you can have smoking cessation programs in which patients are enrolled and they are encouraged to quit smoking. A wonderful MCQ can come on this slide again. What is the most effective strategy for reduction of smoking in the society? The options are the same 4 things that are written on the slide: effective information, legislative restrictions, fiscal measures, smoking cessation programs. The answer would be fiscal measures. It has been shown by research that fiscal measures, that is increasing the rate of cigarettes for the end user, is one of the best strategies to reduce smoking in the society. Primordial prevention, controlling or modifying as many risk factors as possible even before they appear. Well-planned risk factor intervention trials are these 3. Usually studies are not quoted, but these are so important that you should know what are the important studies that are taking place in the fields of CHD. There is the multiple risk factor intervention trial, the Stanford Heart Disease Prevention Program, and the North Carolinian Project. So these are some important studies done in the fields of CHD. They are given in the books. Important data that we discussed today comes from them. So therefore you should know at least the names of these studies. High risk strategy. First prong is identifying the people at risk and giving them specific advice. Who would be at high risk for CHD? Who would be at high risk for CHD? People who have got family history, diabetes, old age, males, smokers, alcoholics. These are the people who are at high risk for CHD. What would be included in the specific advice? Advice pertinent to the risk factor they have. For smoking, smoking cessation; for alcohol, abstinence from alcohol; dietary habit changes, those advices that we discussed. So, advice pertinent to the problems should be given to the patients of CHD. Coming to the secondary prevention in CHD. Prevention of recurrence and progression of CHD is one of the important aims in secondary prevention of CHD. There is coronary artery bypass grafting, which is done at interventional centers. It is a costly procedure, not amiable to everybody. And the other one is percutaneous transluminal coronary angioplasty. In other words, in simpler terms, we say this as angioplasty, wherein we insert a balloon into the artery, we inflate it, and we dilate the blocking artery. So these are obviously secondary prevention, and we know by our knowledge of epidemiology, primordial prevention is the best, if not possible, primary. As you can see here, secondary preventions, the methodologies are very expensive and they will benefit only the particular individual. So they are not a very good strategy. With that, we complete our CHD. See you in the next class. Thank you.